Hello! This is the first video in a tutorial series on programming games for the GameTank. The aim of these videos is to guide you through making your first game for the GameTank, even if you have never coded a game in your whole life. Before we begin, though, we'll need to set up a few programs. The tools we'll be installing today are all needed for turning the code you write into working software. We'll also set up the GameTank emulator so you can test your game as you follow along. This video will be pretty dry, but by the end, you should be able to compile a game into a ROM file and try it in the emulator. We'll be installing Visual Studio Code, Node.js, Msys2, Git, the MinGW W64 toolchain, Vasm, CC65, and the SDL2 libraries. We'll begin by opening their respective download pages and installing them all at once. You don't have to run them all simultaneously like I'm doing, it just made the video a lot easier to record. I'll put the links for these download pages in the video description. Git and MinGW will be downloaded and installed through Msys2, so they won't need to be downloaded in the browser. For Vasm, you'll want to scroll down to the link titled Binaries of Vasm for 6502 for x86-64. For CC65, you want the current CC65 snapshot. The SDL2 libraries can be found under SDL releases. Make sure to download the link ending in .zip specifically for MinGW. VS Code, Node.js, and Msys are packaged as installers, while Vasm, CC65, and libsdl are zip archives that we'll extract ourselves. While the installers are running, we'll extract the downloaded zip files to a folder in the home directory called Repos. I generally like to keep my programming projects in this folder, even if they aren't actually using version control. For the first two zip files, we want the first folder in the zip to sit in our Repos folder. So delete downloads and everything after it, and replace with the name Repos. For CC65, the zip has several folders in its root. So we'll add a folder called CC65 in the path after Repos. We don't want to launch Visual Studio Code just yet, but we do want to launch Msys2 immediately. Now that the installers are finished and the zips are extracted, the next step is to update the Msys package lists, then install the MinGW toolchain as well as Git. The first command is pacman-syu with a capital S. The first run of this command will require Msys to close and reopen. Once it does, we'll run the same command again to finish the update. Next, we'll issue the install commands for MinGW and Git. This is pacman-s, followed by a space, and then mingw-64-x86 underscore 64 dash toolchain. This is the name of the mingw toolchain package we'll be using. This is followed by another space, and then the name Git. Press Enter to issue the command. And then Enter again without typing anything in when it asks you to enter a selection. mingw has several packages in its group, and we want all of them. The Install tool will next display the amount of space needed for the install, to which you can reply with an uppercase Y and Enter. This may take a few minutes. At this point, you'll want to pause the video and return when the install has finished. You'll know it's done when there's a $sign prompt for accepting commands. This took around 7.5 minutes on the virtual machine, but I'll fast forward it for the video. After our install command has finished, we'll want to update a system setting called the path. The path is a list of folders that the system searches in when you enter a command into the terminal. Many commands in the terminal are actually programs, and this is how the system knows where to look for those programs. We'll be adding a few folders to this list so that our build scripts can access the necessary commands for compiling programs. To access this setting, simply type path into your Start menu search bar and click on Edit the System Environment Variables. Then click the Environment Variables button. A window with two lists will appear. In the top list, there should be an entry with the word path in the left column. Double-click on this entry in the list. Yet another window will appear. This time, you can click the New button and type in a folder name and finish the name by pressing Enter. These folder names have my own name, Clyde, in them, so you'll be replacing these with your own name. The last of these folders does not exist yet, but this will save us from having to close and restart VS Code an extra time. Finally, we're done installing programs. Now we can compile the emulator, and then compile and test a GameTank ROM file. Open Visual Studio Code. Then click File, Open Folder. By default, you should be in your user folder, and there should be the repos folder we created earlier. Single-click this folder and click Select Folder. VS Code will next ask whether to open the workspace in trusted mode or restricted mode. Opening in restricted mode will disable many useful extensions, but the rest of the tutorial should work fine. If you do open in restricted mode now, you can always change your mind later. Once the repos workspace has been opened, click Terminal and then New Terminal in the menu bar. This will open an integrated PowerShell session, which will start with the repos folder open. Now let's use Git to retrieve the emulator source code. First, git clone https://github.com/Clyde Schaefer/GameTank emulator. Then, cd GameTank emulator to have our PowerShell session move inside the new GameTank emulator folder. Next, git submodule init. And finally, git submodule update. We're almost able to compile the emulator. First, we need to make one adjustment to the make file. The make file describes the process for compiling the source code into a complete program, so that instead of running several different steps individually, you can just call make to do it automatically. In the Explorer panel on the left, click GameTank Emulator to view the contents of that folder, then click on Make File. The emulator uses the SDL2 library for graphics, sound, and input. New versions of this library are released periodically, and the package we downloaded includes both 32 and 64-bit versions. Scroll down in the make file to find the line that begins with SDL root equals. Edit the version number for SDL2 to match the version of SDL2 that you downloaded. You can see the folder name in the Explorer panel on the left. In this demo, the downloaded version is 2.0.22. Because we installed the 64-bit version of the MinGW toolchain, we also want to switch to the 64-bit version. To do this, replace i686 with x86_64. Now save the file. In the terminal, type mingw32-make and press enter. If the build fails with zip command not found, then congratulations, the emulator is built. Let's try it out now. Type /bin/windows_nt/GameTankEmulator.exe space roms/badapple.gtr. You can exit the emulator by hitting the escape key or clicking on the X in the corner. Next, we'll download and compile an example GameTank game. But first, we need to compile another tool called Zopfli. Zopfli is an open source compression tool released by Google that we'll use to pack graphics and other data into our ROM file. In the terminal, return to the repos folder with cd ... Then download the Zopfli source with git clone https://github.com/google/Zopfli. Then cd into the newly created Zopfli folder and run mingw32-make again. Entering this make command in a folder with no other parameters will run a build based on the make file in the current folder. So instead of the GameTank emulator, it will now compile Zopfli. When it's finished, it will have created zopfli.exe in the same folder. Because we preemptively added this folder to our path variable, we can now call Zopfli as a command in the terminal, or as part of build scripts. We have all the tools we need, so let's download and compile Cubicle Knight. cd back into the repos folder. Git clone https://github.com/ClydeSchaefer/Cubicle Knight. cd Cubicle Knight, mingw32-make. This make file will run several scripts to convert bitmap and MIDI files into binary assets, then process cubicle.asm to create cubicle.gtr. We can now test the game with ./game_bin/windows_nt/GameTankEmulator.exe space cubicle.gtr. If the game looks like this in the emulator window, you've successfully compiled Cubicle Knight and finished the tutorial. In the next video, we'll start from scratch and write our own code for a new game.